Saber control panel and side burner replacement. This video will help guide you through each step of the process. Control panel replacement, side burner replacement, and performing a leak check. Control panel replacement. Tools recommended. Phillips screwdriver. Wearing gloves are recommended to protect your hands. Be sure to keep the shipping carton and return label from the original package. Use the return shipping label provided and the carton to ship the old assembly back to Saber grills. Additional ignition switch wires, wire ties, and number 8 sheet metal screws are provided to use if needed. Some steps may not be needed for your grill. Replacement should only be completed on a grill that is cool to the touch. Be sure to turn off the LP tank and disconnect the hose and regulator prior to changing the part. Step 1. Remove the grease tray for easy access to components. Pull by hand the grease tray out of the cart. Step 2. Remove each one of the temperature gauges by hand by lifting up and then away from the control panel. Retain the temperature gauges for use on the new control panel. Step 3. Caution: do not rotate clockwise past the off position to avoid damage to the valves. Remove the knobs, bezels, and hardware from the control panel. Remove the knobs by hand by pulling each one away from the control panel. The knobs may be tight and require some effort to loosen enough to be removed. One bezel at a time, remove the 2 number 8 machine screws from each bezel and remove the bezel from the control panel. Retain the bezels and knobs to be reused on the new control panel. Reinstall the 2 screws back in the location from where they were removed. This will hold the manifold in place until all bezels are removed. Ship this assembly in the same carton back to Saber grills. Repeat this step on additional bezels, including the side burner, if your grill has one. Step 4. If your grill doesn't have a side burner, this step doesn't apply. Remove the quick disconnect connection to the side burner by pulling back on the disconnect ring on the brass fitting by hand. Once the disconnect ring is pulled back, the hose should pull off the side burner manifold. Step 5. Remove the 2 number 8 sheet metal screws from each side of the control panel lower tabs. Step 6. Open the grill lid. Lift the control panel up and then away from the firebox. Step 7. Wearing gloves are recommended to protect your hands. Unplug the switch wires from the rear of the ignition switch spades by hand. Bend the heat shield up and away from the switch to access the wire spades. Take note of the locations of the red and black wires on the spades to use while installing the new control panel. Unplug the light switch wires from the rear of the switch spades by hand. Slide the side burner stainless hose through the side panel for easy removal. Step 8. Remove your new control panel from the shipping carton, being careful not to damage the carton. This carton will be used to repack the old control panel for shipment back to Saber grills. Step 9. With the new control panel, insert the side burner hose through the side panel and hold the control panel against the firebox. Step 10. Install by hand the ignition switch wires onto the rear spades of the ignition switch. Either wire can be inserted onto either spade. Install by hand the light switch wires on the spades like they were positioned on the old control panel. Press the heat shield back into place just over the wires and locate the wires inside the control panel to prevent pinching them during assembly. Step 11. Install by hand the new control panel onto the firebox. Locate the control panel so the rear flange fits inside the locating tabs. If needed, open the tab slightly with a flathead screwdriver on the front of the firebox. Once the control panel is aligned with the tabs, then slide the control panel down until the top of the control panel aligns with the top of the firebox and the lower screw hole tabs are aligned. Step 12. Install the 2 number 8 sheet metal screws into each side of the control panel lower tabs. Step 13. Changing one valve at a time, remove the two number 8 machine screws and/or washers from each of the valve manifold locations. Orient the bezel to align the bezel openings with the screw holes and center the valve stem in the bezel opening. Finger tighten the bezel screws until the alignment is final. Securely fasten the bezel using the two number 8 machine screws and washers into the control panel holes. Orient the knob to align the D-shaped stem to the opening in the knob and press it on until the knob is just inside the bezel. Repeat these steps for each of the valves to install the knobs. Step 14. Install each one of the temperature gauges by hand by inserting the tip of the temperature gauge through the control panel and into the firebox opening so the tip is visible under emitter plates. Once the tip is visible, then press the temperature gauge rear tabs into the front slotted holes and slide the gauge downward to lock into place. Side burner replacement. If your grill doesn't have a side burner, skip ahead to the leak check section. Tools recommended: 7/16" socket, Phillips screwdriver. Wearing gloves are recommended to protect your hands. Be sure to keep the shipping carton and return label from the original package. Use the return shipping label provided and the carton to ship the old side burner assembly back to Saber grills. Step 1. Old side burner shelf assembly removal. Remove the side burner grate prior to starting. Under the side burner pan, unplug the electrode wire from the side burner electrode spade by hand. Step 2. Loosen the top two 7/16" bolts under the side burner panel shelf assembly with the wrench. Remove the bottom two 7/16" bolts under the side burner shelf assembly with the wrench. Keep these bottom two bolts to be used in the replacement side burner shelf assembly. Step 3. Lift up and then away from the grill to remove the side burner assembly. Step 4. With the new side burner replacement assembly, align the key slots under the side burner shelf with the top bolts and the assembly should hold in place once the shelf is positioned on the top two bolts. The side burner shelf should slide down to align the bottom two bolt holes. Step 5. Insert the bottom two bolts into the shelf and tighten all 4 bolts to secure the assembly. Step 6. Under the side burner pan, plug the electrode wire into the side burner electrode spade by hand. Reinstall the side burner grate into place. Step 7. Install the quick disconnect connection to the side burner by pulling back on the disconnect ring on the brass fitting by hand. Once the disconnect ring is pulled back, the brass fitting will push onto the side burner manifold and release the brass ring to lock into place. Pull gently to ensure the connection is complete. Step 8. Changing one valve at a time, remove the two number 8 machine screws and/or washers from each of the side burner valve manifold locations. Orient the bezel to align the bezel openings with the screw holes and center the valve stem in the bezel opening. Finger tighten the bezel screws until the alignment is final. Securely fasten the bezel using the two number 8 machine screws and washers into the control panel holes. Orient the knob to align the D-shaped stem to the opening in the knob and press it on until the knob is just inside the bezel. Repeat these steps for each of the valves to install the knobs. Caution: do not rotate clockwise past the off position to avoid damage to the valves. Location of the stem in the center of the bezel opening is critical to avoid knob binding. Check each knob to ensure it rotates freely. Performing a leak check. Do not use your grill until it has been leak tested. Step 1. Use a 50/50 solution of water and liquid soap. Step 2. Be sure the valves are off when performing the leak check. Turn the LP tank on. Starting with the LP tank and regulator with gas flowing, brush the connection. If growing bubbles appear, there is a leak and the connection needs to be tightened more securely. Also perform a leak check on the hose manifold connection and the quick connect connection. If your grill is equipped with a side burner. Step 3. Ensure the ignition and lighting wires are located out of the path of the grease tray prior to inserting the tray. Install the grease tray into the rail openings. Return the old control panel assembly in the box provided with return label back to Saber grills.